All right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. I've been looking forward to this one. I've been doing a lot of research on you, Dennis, and I've been stalking you online for a while. You were recommended by a previous guest to get on the podcast, and the more I looked into you, I was like, you have a very unique and fascinating life story, which I'll summarize in a sentence or two for the audience who are not aware, but you had an NRL career for 10 plus seasons, 100 plus games. We're in the squad. We'll talk about this more. That eventually won one of the grand finals, won the season. Then going to landscaping, and now you're on TV doing Selling Houses Australia, and it's kind of what a weird sort of what did you get? Joining of careers or sort of selection of careers. And you've ended up basically what we would call at the top of it all, I would guess. But it sounds like from a little bit of study that I've done that you also have had some pretty interesting lows and lots of challenges and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, man, the more I knew it would be interesting because you recommended. And the more I got into looking into this, I was like, the more excited I got about the conversation. So welcome to the podcast. And I'm looking forward to having a good chat with you.
Mate, no problems. Look, and no subject is off limit, mate. I'm an open book. And yes, I have a bit of a unique story. I can go right back to, I guess, where it all started. Mate, I was a young Central Queensland boy born in a town called Moranbah, which is a coal mine town. Never played a game of football in my life. And then all of a sudden the school decided to enter the local competition. And we only had like 57 kids in the whole school. So I decided to have a crack at it, and then I made the next side, and then made the next side, and next minute mum's doing Leamington drives so I could get the next tracksuit and the bag, and that led to an opportunity at the Brisbane Broncos on nothing but a whim and a prayer. So I packed up all my belongings in my 1982 Toyota Corona, sky blue. It did have air conditioning, so it was a bit of a luxury. Drove from Central Queensland to Brisbane, trained my butt off, and managed to make the under-19 side, and my first contract signed with the Brisbane Broncos was for $3,200. So essentially it was like $60
for the year.
For the year. And I was paying $110 a week in board, living with one of the families that they put me in. So I started a mechanic apprenticeship. I'm a qualified mechanic, diesel mechanic and air conditioning fitter. I finished that early, started professional football with the Broncos, played, I think it might have been 8 or 9 first grade games with them. And then mate, I had the likes of Gordon Tallis and Peter Ryan and all those big names in front of me. Then went to Sydney to the Canterbury Bulldogs, which is where you mentioned that I got injured about 4 games out, I think it was, from the grand final. I got myself back to a position where I could play. Steve Folkes decided to go with Jonathan Thurston, so a front row got injured, and I was
it's just some unknown kid no one ever heard about.
Yeah, no, mate. Well, he was an unknown kid back then, so that's the thing. But look, he mate. Look, it proved to be the right decision as far as Steve Folkes goes, and I definitely don't have a bad word to say about Steve Folkes. God rest his soul, mate. He was incredible. A major influence on my life, both on and off the field. His family were incredible. So yeah, he's just amazing. And then I managed to hook back up with Craig Bellamy and finished off at the Melbourne Storm, where I got injured, and mate, that's where the career ended. Then it was just into the abyss, mate. It was into the abyss.
So this is what I get. So that's a very good summary. You've had to say that at least once before, haven't you?
I've had to explain it a few times, yeah.
Because anyway, I was on Wikipedia and I was listening to other interviews he's done and stuff like that. But a few things before we get into your post career, because that's what most people on this podcast, because obviously it's a lawn and garden podcast, and obviously you're on Selling Houses Australia, turning people's properties around. But you played. I think it was 124, 128 games or something like that. and you were just telling me that average career is 30 something games.
30,
in
yeah,
the
apparently the
NRL.
average career at the moment is 31 games. And look, let me tell you, I was not 4 times better the average player. Look, I made a career out of working hard and being that player that your teammates wanted to have in the side. I was in a side of some big names, you know, Sonny Bill Williams, Willie Masons, Rennie Matudis, the Roy Asatasis. Like they were big name players. But you know, if they named a player that they sort of go, if I miss a tackle and someone's going to help me or cover my ass, they would say it was me, and I made a career out of that, mate. And I'm not ashamed of that, and I'm actually quite proud to say that, mate, I was just one of those players that people wanted to have in their side.
Did you see the end of your career coming from a mile away, or was it something that really just happened and all of a sudden it's, you know, injury, I'm getting a bit old, or the game's moved on, you know, too many
Oh,
young kids coming through?
oh, look, it was. I wouldn't say it was a shock, but I mean, it always is. It did come reasonably quickly. I sort of was trying to plan for it. But you know, you start to get towards the back end of your career, and I remember sitting up in bed and popping 2 ribs, and you know, missing 3 weeks and having to get painkilling injections in my ribs just to train. And then your body takes longer to heal from just little niggles that you used to take, you know, 2 days, they now take, you know, a week. So look, it was imminent, but I had planned to go to England for a couple of years to Salford, and all but had a contract signed. And then I was coming back from a shoulder reconstruction, and I ended up doing my neck and pulled the bulging disc C6, C7 in my neck, which pinched the nerve running down my left arm. And I lost the feeling in my arm for about 6 months, in hospital on morphine, like almost in a coma for a week, just because I couldn't get away from the pain. And then I came back from that and started playing a couple of games of football. And then I saw a specialist, and he sort of said, "Oh, so you've retired, you know, because it's like pretty serious injury." And I went, "Oh, mate, I'm actually being picked again to play first grade tomorrow." And went, "Mate, like as your friend and like as your medical person, you've got to quit." So I rang Craig Bellamy pretty much immediately after coming out of the surgery, and told him mate, I couldn't play the next day. I had to quit.
So I can totally understand, given those injuries, how you went to such a light, non-physical role like landscaping after that.
Yeah. Was that, yeah, well, I sort of then started, mate, I'm telling you, it was, it's a weird journey there. Look, the NRL profess to, you know, say that they prepare you for life after football. Look, it's not something that you can prepare for. It's a bit of bullshit. You know, they want to try and make themselves feel good about the whole process. You become very regimented, mate, when you play football. Like you're told what to wear, when to train, when you're catching buses, what you'd like, and you come out of it, and all of a sudden you're like, hang on, I've got to actually think about this myself. Like, and kids just they're not aware of that. Look, they're getting better at what they're doing, but you know, to go from a couple $100,000 a year and then come out into the real world, and then all of a sudden sort of, you know, you got to pay your bills and your rent's due. You know, I was working 3 jobs at one stage. I was packing shelves at Woolworths from 8 till 2 a.m. in the morning, and then I was going to work at 6 to 7, and then I was working international baggage handling at the airports on Saturdays and Sundays. That's not the glamorous that people see.
Well, how does that feel as a dad as well? Because you've got kids by this stage, and
Yeah.
I've had health problems. People who listen to the podcast know, and one of the things that I struggled with, which I didn't understand. So you're aware, Dennis, although listeners will know, I was doing back in 2019. I was doing ultra marathons, and by the end of 2020, I had an autoimmune disease, which meant I couldn't work physically in my business anymore. It was like 14 months from last ultra to not being able to physically work. And one of the things that I didn't realize was, there's real practical financial problems. Yeah, but I kind of felt like for a while I lost my man card a bit, because I went from being like Mr. Capable, I can do just about everything, to all of a sudden, like, I feel like I'm not that person anymore. And I can imagine that if you're in the NRL, in these great sides, competing with these great players, 100+ games, and now you're stacking shelves at Woolworths.
Yeah, mate,
Like,
it's a shit feeling.
yeah. So what's your mental health like at that stage?
Mate, not great. You don't feel good about yourself. Your self pride, it takes a hit. You know, you almost feel ashamed. But I had kids, and I had to provide for them, and ultimately that leads to that you live a lifestyle, and you keep chasing, and then you start a business, and you're trying to make you're quoting, and you're burning the candle at both ends, and mate, look, it's all sorts of stuff that plays in your mind. But having kids is your main focus, and you want to make sure that you provide for them, and you're not sort of missing out on too much. As men, a majority of the times we're the main breadwinner. That's not to say we're all the time, and whoever is the main breadwinner, whether it's a man or a female, that comes with a certain amount of stress that you either harbor, or you as a male, you push that down, and I kept pushing it down, and mate, it eventually bubbles to the top, and then you have an episode, and then mate, you try and push back on and keep going. Honestly, it's hard to explain, but mate, it's shit. It's a shit feeling.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that transition from, because, well, how long was it between the end of your NRL career to I need to get a real job here? Because, sorry, if I can just say one more thing, people don't understand that in Australian sports, there's actually not as much money if you're not one of the absolute all-time top of the tier
Mate,
players.
absolutely.
Like, because your career is over in most, like you're saying, 33 games. I was talking to Connor Blakely, who's been on the podcast, ex-AFL player, and we were talking about the same thing, where he played 70, almost 80 games, which is still a big chunk for an AFL player, and 9 seasons or something like that. And he has a long career. 9 years is a long career in the AFL. 14 years or whatever it was for you is a very long career in professional sports. But if you're not the Jonathan Thurstons or, the Nat Fifes or whatever it is of the world, there's actually not crazy money that you can just retire and then sip margaritas on the beach for the rest of your life.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. There's very, very small percentages can do that, mate. And even the upper echelon of you get $600,000 or $700,000 for 5 years. Like, it sounds great, but it's not a lot of money in today's society. Like, it's not like you can just as you say, go and sip pina coladas and do what you want. You can invest it wisely and you try, but mate, it's still not a lot of money. And unfortunately, I was never on big money. I was sort of a worker bee. I was one of the drones, and I wasn't one of the upper echelon of players. So I grew up in the country. I knew what work was about, and I wasn't afraid of work. And so when I finished, I knew what I had to do as far as moving forward. I had to get a job, and man, I job hopped a lot to try and find my mark. And it took a long time, mate. It took a long time.
How did you get into landscaping then? Or how did you get into,
mate?
You were saying you were doing mechanics, right?
Yeah, I was a mechanic, and I left mechanics and for a long time, so it would have been like going back and starting over again. So I got into landscaping. I was actually doing some recruitment work, and I was sending labourers to a landscaper, and I wasn't enjoying that. So then I actually just asked the person that I was sending the landscapers to, or the labourers to, if they did have any jobs, and he said, yeah, come and have a crack. And so I did, and mate, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the mateship again, as far as working with guys, and I really enjoyed the physical side of things and being outdoors. Mate, I enjoyed the fact that like you walked away from your job and it was quite rewarding. You saw sort of that result. So it was good. And then I sort of I had a run in with one of the supervisors on the job. He was sort of talking smack about some of the other lads at work, and he actually happened to speak to one of the supervisors on a house that we were working on, and he was a mate of mine. So I knew that he'd said it, but he didn't admit it. And I just went, mate, you just can't do that in a team environment. You can't bag your teammates and then expect them to perform for you. And he denied it. And mate, I sort of said, look, mate, you're a prick and I don't want to work with a bloke like you. And then I was like, right, well, shit, I don't have a job. So then I walked across the street to my neighbour's builder who was doing a renovation and spoke to the builder and said, mate, you got any work going? And he was like, mate, yeah, I do. And then I started a carpentry apprenticeship and finished that. So I'm a carpenter by trade, and worked for a big construction company in Brisbane, and did some project management for them. And then we started to get asked about landscaping. And I said to the guy who owned the business, I said, why don't we do it? And he goes, man, I don't know anything about landscaping. So I said, mate, I do. Like, we can. And so we did that and was going really well. But then I couldn't wear both hats. I couldn't be a building supervisor and landscaper as well. And the guy said, look, there's 50 odd grand in the bank. Like, why don't you just buy it off me for $1 and go for it? And I was like, mate, okay. So that was sort of 10 years ago. And then I'm here. Here I am. So on Selling Houses Australia, which is possibly one of the greatest rides going around.
I think it's such a weird, unplanned kind of. It's not like I left school. I always loved my landscaping, and I got into it, and then eventually I had my own business, and it's just like you've kind of just taken whatever was in front of you, opportunity, did the best thing at it, and then landed this. You must have liked the landscaping though to not go down a pure carpentry aspect though.
Yeah, look, I wasn't a great chippy, mate. Look, I'll be honest. Like, that you've got people that sort of look at things and go, oh, geez, if I just do this and I can bang up some frames and I can do what I have to do. I'm an okay carpenter, but mate, it wasn't my passion. And part of the reason why I decided to do a carpentry apprenticeship was because it was going to complement the landscape stuff, because I really enjoyed the landscape side of things. Yeah. And it sort of has. It's enabled me to do some construction stuff of decks and all that sort of stuff, and have a better understanding of the principles of construction as well. And then, mate, I did that for a lot of years and helped guys, and they helped me. And another guy that I helped, Sam from Archiscapes in Brisbane, he's got a similar business to me, one or two people. And all of a sudden I came home after a long day of work and body was aching, and there was an email from Sam on my computer, and it was a link to apply for Selling Houses Australia. Now, Sam was taking the piss out of me. He was sending it to me, and he was sort of going, you don't mind a bit of a chat, why don't you apply for this? Like, this would be right up your alley. And I sort of thought, you prick, right, okay. And I looked at it, mate, for a couple of days, and then I went, you know what? I'm going to have a crack at that. I'm going to have a crack at it. Like, and I've always, mate, I've got a fear of failure. But the thing is, I'd rather fail trying than like not trying at all. Like, you're never going to know if you don't try. So, and that's a motto that I sort of have always told my girls, like, you'd rather fail and have a crack than not try at all. So I sent an audition tape in. I had a crack. I sent an audition tape in. COVID hit, mate. I didn't hear anything back for about 12 months. And then I rang them and I said, look, I just, out of curiosity, have you selected someone or anything like that? I just, doing a bit of a follow-up call. And they said, oh, actually, no, we haven't selected anyone yet. So just, just stand by. And then they asked for a second audition tape. And then about 6 months later, they rang me and said, literally on April 4, 2 days time, 3 years ago, and said, look, you're our guy. Like, when can you start? Can you start in 2 weeks? And I was just like, wow, mate.
What?
And yeah, literally. And I had jobs booked in, and I said, "Oh, look, I've got to shuffle a few things around." But yep, I thought like I might go into
Nah,
some
I've
media.
changed my mind.
Yeah, I thought I might go into some media training or something like that. You know, they might do a course where I can like learn the craft and all that sort of
Practice.
stuff, and sort of and become a bit more of a polished presenter, etc. But no, mate,
That's
straight into
crazy.
the wall. Yeah, straight into the wolves. And I turned up on day one. And I remember meeting my co-host Wendy Moore, and I was just like, "There's no way this is getting done in 3 days or 4 days. There's no way." And she's like, "Yeah." She was sort of of the same opinion. Um, Mate, some late nights and some early starts and really ripping in. Mate, I walked away and just went, "This is bloody awesome! Like this is great."
Right.
Yeah. So and mate, as I said to you now, like currently we are starting filming for our for my fourth season, season 17 of Selling Houses Australia, which will air next year. So the current season 16 is airing now on Foxtel Lifestyle Channel. And yeah, we're filming for next year's stuff already.
So that's so weird that so like one, they take 12 months to kind of even get in contact, and then it's like, I'll give you 2 weeks notice kind of thing to completely upend your life. But
Yeah.
also they must have really trusted your capacity in front of a camera or your ability in front of a camera just to be able to go, no, he's fine. We don't like, we can do it in 2 weeks. Let's go.
Mate, I honestly but I still, if that's what they've done, they're bonkers. Like seriously, like I still look at myself and just go, "What a bloody plonker!" Like I'm just a bloody bumble on my way through, mate. To tell you the truth, but that they apparently they like the rawness of what you're doing, mate. It's real, and I think people appreciate the fact that you know what, that you're probably not as polished as what other presenters etc are.
Yeah, I like that too. I get frustrated when I watch TV shows that are not genuine, you know, and people who, and I really like this genre of TV, grand designs. I love watching, you know, back in the day when I was a young whippersnapper, watching Better Homes and Gardens when I was in primary school with my parents and all that sort of stuff. But the, you know, there's kind of a presenter voice that people put on, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I don't like that style. So maybe there's something about that, because you're definitely not a you know, put it on for the camera kind of guy.
No, mate, honestly, I'm definitely not a one take wonder. I can guarantee you of that. There's more than one take done. So the hardest workers on the show, mate, are the editors, because they have to sift through a bit of stuff to actually make myself look good. Trust me. Yeah, look, I just call it as it is. Hey, like, I mean, if I and as far as gardening goes, you know, there's no right or wrong. Like if you know what, if you like it, put it in your bloody garden. If you don't like it,
Right.
then you know what, don't put it in your garden. But just if you've got something that you like, make sure you put it in the right spot so it's actually going to grow and it's going to be able to flourish. You know, there's no right or wrong answers to a lot of things in life, and gardening is definitely one of those. So mate, it's a healthy habit to get into. You know, spending some time outdoors, it actually makes you live longer, mate. Some fresh air. It's got so many health benefits to it as well. And I just want to be one of those people that go, you know what, just get out there and have a go. Like, just do your best and have a go.
Do you know, for the last few months, I've been working on a course to help people start and run a successful lawn mowing or gardening business. I've had a lot of questions over the years from people asking for coaching or asking for some sort of advice, and I'll help out as much as I possibly can. But at the end of the day, there's a limit to how much you can write in a comment, and I don't really have the time or skill set to do coaching. And so we've made this course from scratch. It's 47 lessons, over 6 hours of content. It is not a short little course that you can get done in a weekend. And also the price reflects that. But if you are somebody who is wanting to get into the industry from a different industry, or you're somebody who is really great at gardening, but maybe you need some help on the business side, I think the value for money is off the charts. I honestly think that if I had had this course myself when I was first starting out, or even in the first few years of business, it would have saved me years and years and years of heartache and mistakes and pain, because a lot of us were making the same mistakes that I was making all those years ago. And it can be avoided. If you are somebody who that sounds interesting to you, check out the link. Oh, I should also say there is an exclusive group as well. It's not just a course. There's a group. You have conversations, ask questions, all that sort of stuff. I want it to be as helpful as possible. I want people to succeed in business because I think small businesses are awesome, and I think the gardening and lawn care industry is even better. So if that sounds like it's of interest to you, there's a link in the description. Check it out, and I'll see you there if it is the right thing for you. Anyways, let's get back into the podcast. It's official. We are doing a live podcast tour across Australia this winter. That's right. I'm packing up with the family, bringing the kids along, and we're driving through Australia, and we're going to go to lots of different places, interview people in situ, where they're from, ask some great questions. And you know what? We're going to do live events, and you're welcome to come. Now, there's some details that are going to come out in the future, but if you've got any ideas, you've got anything you want to say, hey, you should get this person on, or you should do this, or you should please come to my country town. I know it's small, but we can get enough people. I'm happy to go, because we don't need big crowds. I'm not looking for necessarily big crowds. We're just looking for a good time. Anyways, send me a message if you want to get part of that conversation, either in Instagram or LinkedIn. They're the places I check the most. And do you know what? I hope to see you on the tour. I'll let you know when we got some event dates and specific things going on, and the people who are supporting it, because it's not happening in a vacuum. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. Anyways, I'm not going to talk. I'm going to talk too much if I share too much information, if I keep going. Get in contact, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'll see you hopefully in the live events, but definitely back into the podcast. So what was it like rocking up on the first shoot? Because you said you were never going to get done in 3 days, but also you must have been very nervous in front of that camera the first time they clicked record.
Yeah, there's some guy stuffing a camera in your face, and you've got to come up with something to say, and you've never done it before in your life.
Do they give you lines or anything?
No, see, that's the thing. It's all unscripted. Now, I would probably appreciate that if they gave me some form of lines to actually say, but to be honest, like when they do give you some direction or give you something that you've got to say, or say you're doing a sponsor's piece to camera and you've got to mention a certain product and how it works and all that sort of stuff, they'll give you a bit of a script. Mate, I go to water. I literally, like, all of a sudden my hands become sweaty. I get cold and clammy, and I literally get so nervous that it's like I'm like, hang on, like, but if they just say, this is what you got to do, this is what you say, I can do that. And mate, what you see is real and authentic on telly, and hopefully that comes across that way, and hopefully that's the way I can be. I mean, let's face it, Scotty Cam's not going to last forever. Costa, he's there, putting flowers in his beard, etc.
Yeah.
Jamie Jury's had his day. Look, hopefully I can gain some supporters and get some traction, mate, in an industry that is probably lacking some characters at the moment, and I'd love to be that character.
So Costa is a lot older than what you think he is. That beard is a good job of making him look young. I didn't realize, because he was on the news the other. I've got to double check this. I'm going to Google this before I say it. But I was. Here we go. Let me just double check this. Yeah, he's 60. Costa is 60 years old. I was like, I saw that the other day because I think the ABC won an award or something like that. And I was like, damn, that beard is doing a good job of covering up some of those wrinkles that he must have underneath. Or the flowers are great anti-aging. I don't know. He's come across some sort of secret there or something.
He's a lovely guy. He's a kookster, but he's a lovely guy. Seriously, I've met him a few times now at some of the awards. Very passionate, mate. Very passionate about his gardening. Very knowledgeable as well. Like he's very knowledgeable, and he's a lovely guy. But yeah, he's definitely left of center.
Yeah, but I think I like this. One of the things I love about the podcast is having all sorts of people on who have all sorts of different opinions. Because when it was back in the day, when you only had Better Homes and Gardens and maybe Burke's Backyard or whatever, when I was growing up, there wasn't that much time to really talk about things in depth. And I like hearing different opinions. I like hearing people's stories and hearing the stuff behind it and enjoying that. And even if I don't agree with somebody, I still like having a chat with them, you know? I don't know if you're like.
Yeah, look, I'm mate, I don't mind to chat with anyone. And end of the day, you might learn something. Like, you know, there's so many people you talk to and you walk away and you think, oh, geez, bloody dickhead, or, you know, like I don't really want to spend much time with him. But, mate, give everyone a chance and give everyone a bit of your time. It doesn't really cost you anything. You know, it's like a please and a thank you. I've learned so much, mate, from the industry, from people that I've chatted to, and I probably will never chat to them again. But, mate, they were a pleasurable experience, and yeah, mate, walk away. And if they're not your people, then, mate, associate yourself with the people that you like.
So I wanted to ask you a question that I think a lot of people would think about with your show, right?
Yes.
Do you remember back in the day when they had Bear Grylls on Man vs. Wild?
Yes,
And
used to
there was
love it.
this,
I used to think I could do it. Yes.
yeah, I loved it too. And then later on, I used to watch all the episodes. Later on, it came
Yes.
out that there was certain stuff that they weren't being quite truthful with, and certain things
Yeah.
that are supposed to be dropped in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, I didn't mind it because I what's the word? I'm kind of, it's entertainment. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
I saw it as a form of entertainment. But sometimes I watch some of the stuff you guys do and I look at the budget and I'm like, how the hell did you do that with that in that time frame? And I just go, what really goes on behind the scenes with the budgets that you guys have? Is there some form of not deception or anything, but some people would be accusatory and they go, oh, they must be doing this, and then some people are being like, oh man, this is so inspirational. Anyways, I'm just asking that question that some might have.
Look, it's been said numerous times that we bring with us a lot of free labor. Labor is expensive,
Right? Yes.
So if you are paying for that labor, that would drive your price up ridiculously. Now the homeowners pitch in and they put in that money that we discussed. They put in that. So generally, if you see a product on the show and it flashes across the camera, that's either being given to us as at an extremely discounted rate or possibly even for free. So as a contrapart or as a sponsor. So, you know, you put your money in and we will maximize that to our greatest ability. So
see, that's, man, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna go to the show now, because if I'm getting free labor and discounted products, man, like, you know, you're getting a good deal by coming on.
If you're selling your house and it hasn't sold for one reason or another, honestly, go to the casting, and we look at all different genres and all different age groups and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, if you've got a story that's going to be great for TV, you know, you're a divorced couple, or you know, something happens in your life that's a little bit wild and crazy, or you're a bit of a kooky person, you know, it makes for good TV. Like, let's face it. So they're the people that sort of initially sort of spark an interest. But yeah, mate, we also cater for mums and dads that, you know what, really just are struggling to sell their house. And look, a lot of the times you turn up and you just think, look, if this place was clean, like it was actually probably, you know, is going to be a lot better chance. And you sort of walk away sometimes and you're a bit frustrated because you're like, mate, mow your lawn, mulch your gardens. Like, seriously, that's all you got to do. Yeah, maybe take that car body out of the backyard. Like, it's fine. Like, honestly, just it's simple fixes sometimes. And honestly, some of the stuff that we do is really simple, like really simple.
But I also like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, do you remember Pimp My Ride back in the day? We
Yes.
put
Yeah.
17 TVs on the wheels
I
and
know.
hubcaps of this car.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I
Yeah.
mean, probably just give them the money. It would have been better for their
Yeah.
future, you know?
Correct, mate. To the point, like we've just finished a renovation, and literally it was removing a few things that were a bit probably over the top in the front, planting a few extra trees, and scraping out a backyard that was like overgrown, had dogs running in it and fences and stuff everywhere, and just bits and pieces. And we've took them out, and essentially just returfed the backyard so it looked like a nice big open family friendly yard. And it was possibly one of my proudest renovations, and it was
Right.
simple, so
Right.
simple.
Do you get much notice with this with these
We
renovations?
generally get to go and see the property about a week before, a week and a half
Oh
before.
wow, that's not much notice.
No, sometimes you might get a couple of weeks, and then so you've got to come up with a design, and then you've got to try and organize all this. So the best part for the homeowners is instead of having to worry about doing a renovation and building works, it's all taken care of for them. Not only are they getting free labor, not only are they getting some products at extremely discounted rates, they're actually getting someone to manage the whole process for them. And they don't have to
Right.
worry. Literally, they move out for the 3 days or the 4 days that it takes, and they come back, and it's done, and then it gets put back on the market. Um, and yeah, we hope that we have maximised their chances of getting a sale.
There must be people who come back and then they don't want to sell now. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
oh,
look,
you did too good a job.
Look, I'm sure that there has been a few, and Wendy and I and Andrew, we come away sometimes and we go, they're not going to sell. They're like, yeah, I think they're going to be happy, because ultimately what we're doing, we're creating their ideal home.
Yeah.
So it's a home now that they go, oh, wow, what, Jill? It's amazing the amount of times that people say, oh, look, that's exactly what I would have done. Like, that's what I would have. It's like, well, why didn't you? You didn't do it
Yeah.
because, like, yeah,
Shut up.
yeah. Sometimes you do feel like saying that, but it's it's quite humorous the amount of times and comments that you get told, or it's like, oh, well, if we were doing the renovation, we would do this or we would do that. It's like, well, yeah, okay, but like,
You've been here for how long? Yeah.
yeah, correct. And the
Are
homeowners
you
don't.
talking about? Are you talking about commenters who watch it, or are you talking about the actual
Well, but
homeowners?
a bit of both. Like, there's a bit of both going on there. But the homeowners don't get a say in what we do. So
Right.
they literally give us the money, and we get to come up with the plan and design and all that sort of stuff, and they come back, and it's literally a legitimate reaction to what they see is like a drastic change to their property.
What's has there been a time on the flip side where you felt that the owner didn't like they kind of put on a brave face, but they were like,
Yeah.
whether it was something you did or Wendy or whoever, and you were like, this is not, they didn't like it.
Yep,
That would
absolutely.
be
There was
awkward.
yeah, there's been quite a few times actually, where
Oh
you've
wow.
done something and they sort of come through and it's like, uh, oh, okay, like, and you just know that they're not liking it at all. But I mean, that's good. It's opinions are, mate, like a
It makes
backside.
it
Everyone.
interesting TV.
Yeah, mate, everyone's got one, they're like a bum, everyone's got one, and they're not right or wrong. It's like, that's your opinion. If that's your opinion, then mate, stand by it. Like, and I'm all for it. It's the people that have an opinion, but then all of a sudden they don't stand by their opinion when they're in a group, and like they then do a extreme U-turn. They're the people that I sort of go, I have more respect for people that have got an opinion and they stand by it.
Yeah. It must be. I would be a bit defensive, I think, if I was in that moment, because I'd be like, "Yeah, well, you left it in this bloody state.
Yeah,
What does your opinion matter?"
yeah, you know what? You there is part of you that that sort of wants to say that, and this is going to come across probably really really nasty. But
No, don't worry, because I'm
um,
feeling the same thing. I'll
you
come
kind of,
however nasty you.
you're kind of saying, look, I bloody know more than you, all right, about this sort of stuff. Like,
Yeah,
trust me,
yeah.
this is actually an improvement. Like, I get that
Yeah.
you've got an opinion, but you don't know what you're talking about, really. Like, so it's
Yeah.
sometimes you'd like to, but mate, you sort of bite your tongue and away you go. And you know what? The best part is you walk away knowing that you as a person have done the right thing and maximize their chances of selling the house. And 9 times out of 10, mate, that's often the case.
Because you do feel like, because it's literally like, hey, you're on Selling Houses Australia, and it's not because you're the expert. Do you know what I mean? You're saying this to the person whose house you're working on. It's always be like someone going on The Biggest Loser and then telling Michelle Bridges that the diet plan that they've decided on is not
Yeah,
as good
hasn't
as what
quite
they would
worked.
have come up. Yeah, I
Yeah,
would have come up with something better than that. It's like, well, why are you on the show to start with? If you could have come up
mate.
with a better diet plan, you wouldn't be here,
And this is the exact, yeah, correct. It's like, oh, I would have done this, and that's when you sort of feel like saying, well, but you didn't. Like, so it's like, mate, in my landscaping business, there's been a few instances where you give your quote, and it might be, I don't know, it might be $5,000. Like, oh, it's a bit high, and is there anything that we can do to reduce it? And I go, well, yeah. I mean, you can pull the weeds and you can cut those trees down and
yeah.
you can do whatever, but you haven't, like, for however long. So you either pay me the $5,000 to do it and it's done once and it's done properly, or you can do, whatever you have to do. And then they go, yeah, no, you just do it and it's fine. It's like, mate, there's a lot of people out there that think they're experts. And look, I don't get it right all the time. Expert, I think, is probably not the right word. Mate, I've got a special taste of what I like to do, and it's not always right. But you know what? I think a majority of the time it is, and I think if I can continue to be on the positive side of the ledger and less on the negative side, mate, I'm going to be okay.
Being on TV would put pressure on that, wouldn't it? Like,
Sure
before you were
does.
a landscaping guy, and now you're the landscaping guy on TV, and you'll probably get a bit self-conscious whenever anyone asks you for advice now, because they take it like you're the lord
Absolutely,
of landscape.
mate. Absolutely. And I can guarantee you, I don't know bloody everything. I really don't. And I don't know how to pronounce half the bloody plant names in the
Yeah.
world. Whoever came up with the fact that each plant had to have a Latin name is just crazy.
Yep.
And I'm more than happy to use their common names instead of their Latin names. Yeah, I don't know every plant for every climate. I don't know every chemical that you use on lawns. I don't know, mate. I don't know everything. I really don't. But if I don't know something, if someone asks me something, I will quite happily tell them that, you know what, I don't know. But I've got some people that I can call, and I will then call those people and I will try and find that information out. And then not only have they learned something, I've learned something as well. And then I can then, next time it gets asked, oh yeah, mate, what about trying this? Like, so
Yeah.
I don't know everything, and I don't profess to know everything. And there's so much to bloody know. Honestly, there is so much to know. And I'm never going to know it all. I really am never going to know it all. Am I going to try to learn stuff? Absolutely. Do I learn stuff every day? Absolutely. So, yeah. Look, for those that think that, that I do know everything, I really don't.
Do you get random questions from people? You were saying you were just at Bunnings before you came on the podcast. I'm sure someone at Bunnings has noticed you at some point and been like, mate, I've got this thing. Let me show you some photos of my property. And you're just like, I don't know. Oh man, how do I answer this?
Yeah. Oh, look, there's been a couple of incidences where they've sort of gone, oh, I love you on the show. Like, and I'm like, yeah, well, I think you just, mate, you try and sort of be as polite and nice as possible and say, oh, look, thank you. Yep. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. And you try and get out. But there's been a couple that have gone, oh, I've got something like, can you tell me, like, I've got this such and such in my lawn, or I've got this on my trees, and I'm just like, oh my God. Because half the time, you know what, like the way they're describing it, I don't even know what it is. Like, and then they'll get a photo of it. And mate, honestly, it's there's professionals out there, there's hort guys out there that this is their jam. I'm a general knowledge. I've got, mate, Cert 3 landscape construction. I've got general design. I've got general awareness of like most common threats to your lawns and plants. There's so much to know as far as specialization goes. It is everywhere. And there's so many chemicals. So, 9 times out of 10, I'll recommend a very broad spectrum solution. And if that doesn't work, that's when you sort of need to go to a professional and speak to them about it.
Specialist, yeah. Because there's so many, like, I love going down these little niches, but there are so many niches in gardening. So, like, you go from, like, just take roses, for example.
Yes. Mate.
Like, that's all individual plant. That,
yes,
obviously there's many varieties of them that people nerd out over and breed, and then you have so many different solutions and options for solutions. It's chemical or natural or whatever it is, and then people breed them, and some people can just look at a distance and tell you the exact name of whatever hybrid tea thing that was over there, and you're like, that's a rose, and that's but then that person, if you ask them a question about lawn, they wouldn't know the difference between, say Cooch and Kikuyu, but they're right next to each other. And then the lawn guys are so nerdy, and then there's indoor plants, and then there's bloody natives, and then there's design, and then you start getting to the decking or whatever, the construction. Mate, there's so many niches.
Absolutely. Horses for courses. Honestly, there is so many niches, and lawns are coming straight back in as far in the cool and funky and trendy thing to have. Years ago, way back in medieval times, like if you had a lawn, it was a sign of prestige, it was a sign of wealth, and it was a sign of like that, like I've got enough money that I can sit around and I can maintain my lawn. And that's kind of what it is now. It's a proud fact that, look at my lawn. It's one of those things where men these days are poking their chest out about their lawns, and they're loving the maintenance of it. Years ago it was like, mine's bigger than yours. Well, you know what? It's not about that. Now it's mine's greener than yours. Mine's flatter than yours. Mine's got better stripes than yours. Oh, I've got a putting green. I'm using this chemical. I'm using Lawn Pride. Oh shit, I'm using ICL, mate, and it's great. No, well, I'm using Plant Doctor, and Plant Doctor is so much better because the nutrient factors are like so much more efficient. But, mate, again, it's horses for courses. And all those products,
base their masculinity on the color.
Yeah, they do. And mate, all those products that I just mentioned are awesome. Like, they are, mate, incredible. And it's personal preference. It's like, mate, you know what? I wear Bonds undies. Like, someone might wear Calvin Klein. Guess what? They both hold your nuts up, and they're okay. Like, they're all right. Like, and as long as I'm okay with what I've got and you're okay with what you've got, like, it's fine.
Yeah, my budget only affords me Target undies. You know what I mean?
Well, there you go.
I'm not earning the big Foxtel dollars,
Oh, yeah, no, I'm big Foxtel dollars on the Bonds undies, mate. Let me tell you, there's no Calvin Kleins going on here, mate. That's for sure.
Well, I was going to ask you, how much time does the selling houses actually take up? Because I know you still, like, obviously you're running your business as well. So I'm sure it's not like a full-time gig, right?
Mate, it starts March and finishes the end of September, and roughly.
Oh, wow, that's a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah, it's about 7 months, and rough guide is about 8 days a fortnight.
Oh, wow, that's a lot more than I thought.
Yeah, so we'll go 1 week where we'll do the walkthrough and budget chat, which will take up sort of 2 to 3 days, and then we'll do a renovation, which takes. I came down here, so we're Monday, so it's like 3.5 days to 4 days, and then you've got a day travel, so it's 5 days by the time you sort of fly in and fly out and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's roughly about 7 to 8 days a fortnight as a guide.
Yeah, and that's during what would typically be considered the quiet time for landscaping. Or at
Yeah,
least gardening.
winter is like, but being in Queensland, mate, we don't really have a downtime. Like
True.
your lawns do go dormant to a degree, but they still grow because we've still got that heating in Queensland. And what it enables you to do is you can catch up then on things that you sort of don't generally get to do when the heat and humidity's there and you're mowing bloody every week. You know, you can then catch up
Yeah.
on hedges and weeding and then liquid ferting your plants and all that sort of stuff. Like, you know, the thing with lawns and gardens is I find, and this is, mate, you know, only my advice, which I've learned by the hard way. A lot of people are reactive with their gardens and lawn. As soon as something goes wrong, they react. And it's all past the point. Whereas if you're proactive and you get into a cycle of your pest protection and fertilization and watering programs and all that sort of stuff, you're generally in front of all those diseases and you're generally in front of all those, herbicide issues and fungicides and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So you try and be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah, and again, it goes back down to like just going right down these rabbit holes of hobby knowledge and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You can spend decades on that sort of stuff, and I love
Oh.
it because I think it's so cool. I've talked about this many times, but I think it's such a cool thing about making living organisms organized and neat and tidy, and which is essentially what landscaping and garden maintenance is. You know, like taking a lawn which in the wild would be, you know, long or eaten by something like a, you know, bison or something out in the wilderness.
Yeah.
But you can take that and then you cylinder cut it down to 12 millimeters and it looks like a green carpet, and all of a sudden it's like there's something really satisfying about that, and even satisfying about watching people do that on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. And then, you know, what you do where you're putting in a deck or a path or, you know, like even just painting the fence a certain color that accentuates, you know, the colors of the plants near it and all that sort of stuff. There's something so satisfying about that it does hook you in and draw you in, and you kind of become an addict to so yeah, it's definitely certainly a much more healthy addiction than anything else. But
absolutely.
you kind of get sucked into this sort of like whirlpool of information that just, you know.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And it's a vortex, honestly. Like you see a guy that, and I think this is the best part about the industry at the moment is everyone is quite willing to share their information because it's like a hobby. So you walk past someone's lawn, you go, mate, I really like your lawn. It's great. You know, what are you using? And they're open and they're friendly, and it's a way to sort of share and exchange information. It's a passion that people are, you know, proud to say they're a part of, but they're also so open and willing to share that information because it's like it's cool, and it's cool to sort of be recognized as, you know what, I've got a bloody good lawn and someone else wants to copy my lawn. But I mean, as far as grass goes, you know, you look at the definition of a weed. Like a weed is a wild plant, mate, growing, you know, often in times where it's not wanted or in places where it's not wanted and in competition with other plants or other cultivated plants. Mate, that's exactly what grass does. Sometimes it grows where it's not wanted, and it's, you know, so it's a manufactured weed, and it's a weed that we love, and we're weed that we, like, you know, have turned into lawn and keep tidy. And it's like, it's a passion, and it's a bloody big passion at the moment.
There's something else about lawn and specifically what you do, which is there's two things that make the biggest impact, I think, in the shortest period of time, which is new laid lawn and new mulch. And if people just did that, like the before and afters on a yard, if you just did those two things, are just it's almost overpowered, you know. And I think it's because it's the final stage of where it's actually at. There's no other thing in lawn and garden landscaping, I mean, unless you've got massive budgets, where you actually put plants in that are at their finished size. You know what I mean?
Unfortunately, with some of the gardens that we do is you would love to put in larger sized plants, but, you know, if you put in the right size plant and let them grow into where they're going to grow into, it's going to actually look quite sparse. So there's a fine line with what I do on Selling Houses Australia, where you've got to put in sometimes more plants into a spot that really in the future is going to be overcrowded. But we've got to try and get that instant effect and that instant look and bang for our buck first up. So there's a lot of things that we do, and we do it wrong sometimes as far as long term as a garden goes. But it's a very fine line, and it's a balance that you do, and it's something that sometimes you sort of you walk away and you think, oh geez, that garden's going to be overgrown in 3 or 4 years. But you sort of hope that the people that own the place are going to maintain it and then probably trim them and do the right things by it. So they're all little things that you've got to take into consideration, and they're little things that I take pride in, and I walk away and I know sometimes I might have done the wrong thing, but 9 times out of 10 I really try and take all those factors in and do the right thing as often as possible.
Get back to the amount of work it takes and those 6-7 months on the show. Does it ever get to a point where it's a bit much, like it's work-wise, it's getting overwhelming, or is it all right to balance them?
No, it's bloody ridiculous. It's crazy. Like seriously, the last couple of years has really broken, like almost broken me. I've had a couple of big jobs in my own business, too big, and I started to miss a few details and things that sort of I'd forgotten about, and I just wasn't doing myself any favors. So this year I've tried to sort of stop and smell the roses a little bit. I've sort of downsized, and I'm only taking on very niche and little jobs that I know that I can sort of handle in short periods of time, and that's just a conscious decision because the time spent with Selling Houses Australia is quite considerable. Now, I've also got an amazing helper over the last 2 years, Jacqueline Ray. She's got her own garden design as well in New South Wales. Whereas the first year that I did it, mate, I was doing everything by myself. Like it was crazy. And I take ownership in what I do. Like, I think Jack thought that she was just going to come in and be able to just do the design, and I was going to go, yep, great. Well, I'll just talk about it. Bullshit. Like, you know what? This is my face on camera. I own this. Like, you know what? I'm going to help make the decisions about products and placements and all that sort of stuff. And because it's my name and it's my face to the work's done, and I want to walk away and I want to feel proud about what I've done. And you know what? If someone doesn't like it, I get it. I get that someone doesn't like it, but you know what? If I'm not your flavor and you still like Charlie, mate, go and watch Better Homes and Gardens. Channel 7, 7:30 on a Friday. Like that's don't tell me about it. Like I don't need to know that you like Charlie better. Like, and if you do, stiff shit. Like, good on you.
Do people actually say that often, or is it just one or two people?
Yeah, they do that. Well, mate,
rubbish like that.
Mate, I've so often got, oh, geez, I really miss Charlie. It's like, you know what? Well, I'm sorry, but 7:30, Channel 7, Better Homes and Gardens. Like, you know what? Get your fix. No problems. Like, seriously. It's mate. There's plenty of keyboard warriors out there, and mate, I sort of, when I first started, I took it to heart a little bit sometimes. Like I'm a passionate guy and I'm competitive, and I'm like, you know what? Like, stick it up your jumper. I don't care, I wouldn't remove that tree. Well, what tree would you remove? Where's your horticulture? Where's your experience going on? And they're like, oh, I'm not a horticulturist. Well, it's like, well,
that's the internet comment section, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, honestly, and I got caught up in it when early, and now I read it and have a bit of a chuckle, and I try and say a couple of smart ass things back every now and again, but it's, look, it is what it is. As I said to you, mate, look, I'm not perfect, and I don't know everything. I don't know everything about garden design, and I don't know everything about plants, and I don't know everything about grass, and I don't know everything about the bloody horticultural world, but I'm quite proud and passionate about what I know, and I know what I like, and I know what I like doing, and what I like doing is this. And mate, try and stop me.
I wonder, as you're saying that, if there's people who are then commenting on the Better Homes and Garden stuff at Charlie stuff, going, "Oh, Miss Jason."
Look,
You know what I mean? It doesn't matter who it is. It's probably somebody who liked The Last Guy. I mean,
I'm sure
I
they
don't know.
do. And you know what? I actually get along. I've developed quite a good friendship with Jason. And he's a great guy. And I'm sure there's people that must message Charlie and go, "Oh, bring back Jason." It's like, oh, you know what? Like,
And then
people
they
don't
would
like
message
change.
you. Exactly.
People don't
So
like change.
how many people watch the show? I mean, I don't need to know exactly, but let's say like 90% love you and 10%, would prefer Charlie. The odds are massively in your favor, but 10% of the people who watch the show is still a huge number. That you know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah.
It
Mate.
might be
Look,
that and I'm not saying there's a competition between you or anything, but it's just how the internet works, and that you have all these sorts of people who will have all these.
Charlie's a great guy, mate. Honestly, like Charlie's an awesome guy. Like I've met him on numerous occasions. I've just been at Mifkis with building a welcome garden with Jason Hodges, and Charlie was there with Graham Rowe doing his garden, and I went across and had a good chat with both of them. There's no rivalry or anything like that. Like it's just, man, it's just two people like having a go in an industry that is bloody fickle and it's hard. And everyone seems to think that, you know what, they're able to make a comment about you and to you and all that sort of stuff. It's almost like people feel that they've got a certain amount of ownership over you. Mate, look, again, I don't know everything, but I like what I do. I love what I do. I love my co-hosts. I love Wendy and Andrew. Like they're awesome. I love the camera guys. I love, the staff behind the scenes. That they've really filled the void with a lot of things for me. And I'm passionate about the whole process. I'm passionate about getting people's houses ready for sale. And it's awesome, man. And if we don't have a laugh at least once a day, seriously, we're doing something wrong. We have some fun as well.
I wonder if Charlie. I've never talked to Charlie in my life before, but if I'm just being cheeky here, but he couldn't actually say anything negative about you publicly because he'd be like, "Yeah, this guy used to be in the NRL." You know what I mean?
Well,
so
mate,
I think you would win that
look,
fight, is what I'm getting at. If anything comes to fisticuffs, I'm putting my money on you.
Look, I possibly would say something like, "Run at me, Charlie. Just run at me, and I reckon I've run it straight, and I reckon I've got you covered."
I think you've had a little bit more practice than the average guy.
Yeah, look, mate, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I think I won my last fight by about 250 meters because I ran so fast. It was like ridiculous. So, mate, there's no winners in fighting. That's for sure.
Yeah, you'll kiss him to death.
Yes, absolutely.
Talking about back to the show then. What is for you the proudest? You're saying recently you had one that was probably up there with your proudest moments, but is there something that maybe didn't make it to camera, like a behind the scenes effort that was just off the charts, that you just look back and you're like, man, I'm really proud of the team for pulling through, or a specific story where, you know what I mean?
My first episode, it will stay with me. Honestly, to turn up and like a deer in the headlights, and then everyone around me who I had never met before, that was so confident in me, and they were so positive about like what we were about to achieve and what we were about to do. And then at the end of it, like that sense of pride, and being able to experience that with the likes of Wendy, who I know had that same sense of pride about finishing, and it was some late nights. Like we've shared some like really down moments where we're like, shit, are we going to get this finished? But mate, I've always said to Wendy, I'll never leave if you've still got stuff to do. Like we work together tirelessly, and mate, we work together inside and outside. And often, if Wendy doesn't have anything inside, she's more than happy to come outside, and she tries to help me outside. And if I've finished outside, I'm always there putting my hand up inside, mate. I just think the whole process and teamwork and just comradeship as far as everyone, like if we've got our backs to the wall, the cameramen will put down their cameras and they'll help us lay turf, or they'll help us like clean up. Like that is, mate, that's my proudest achievement, having that sense of pride and passion again, that what I used to experience when I was playing football.
Yeah, so I feel it's great that you've got that, now, because I mean it's a long cry from stocking shelves at Woolworths. What you're doing now.
Yeah, it is.
Was there ever a moment where you were stocking shelves and you were thinking, "Is this the rest of my life? Like,
Yep,
where am I going now?"
mate. There's some dark days, like honestly. Yeah, mate, there's some dark days, like really dark days where I was thinking like, oh, your self-worth is just at its lowest point.
Yeah,
Mate, it's I'm just thinking about it now, about, I can very vividly remember driving home, at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, and just thinking like, I could swerve off the road here. And no one would ever know. No one would ever, mate, think about it. I was never a superstar as far as football goes. Even now, sometimes they write, ex NRL star, now turned gardener. Mate, I was never a star. Like mate, I played NRL, like, and that doesn't define me, like what defines me is being a forthright person, and mate, saying please and saying thank you, and shaking people's hands, and mate, being, approachable and pleasant. Like, that's what makes you a person. Just because you played NRL, mate, doesn't make me any better than anyone else.
So how would you feel if you could go back in time 15 years ago or 20 years ago, whatever it was, when you finish your NRL career and you're stocking those shelves, and you could just go say to that version of Dennis, in 20 years' time, you're going to be on Selling Houses Australia, you're going to be doing this. How would that guy respond?
I would tell myself I was smoking crack or something like that. Seriously, because like I would not believe it, mate. You know what? The thing that's got me through, and Rosie Trindle, my wardrobe lady, when I first came in, I'd never met her, and as soon as I met her, we just sort of had a connection. It was like, yeah, Rosie, and then it ended up being that her husband had played NRL and I'd played against him. Like it was a weird coincidence. And Rosie just said to me, you know what, just be a good guy, be a guy that, be the guy that you are, and just work hard, and people will just, like, the right people will gravitate to you. And mate, I just try and work hard. I often try to be the first on site, and I'm often the last to leave site. Mate, it's a weird job site because we're asking trades to do things that, they wouldn't normally do. We're asking trades to work on top of one another. We're asking trades to, mate, do things quicker than what they would normally do. So Wendy and I, mate, they can leave. They can down tools, and they can go and say, you know what, stuff this. This isn't for me. This is Wendy in my career. This is Wendy in my job. Like, we can't leave. Like, so we've got to set the tone. We've got to set the tone about, you know what, like, you're here, and we appreciate that you're here, and you know what, we're here too, and we're sort of working, and we both work bloody hard, and we both make sure that everyone knows that they're appreciated. And I always try and say thank you to even the trades that are inside, that walk outside. I even, yeah, thanks boys, like, really appreciate your help. Like, and mate, it goes a long way. Like, and a thank you doesn't cost you anything. So that's what I've just tried to do. And that's what I would tell myself, if I was going back to that person working in Woolworths. I'd say, you know what, mate, this is shit, but just keep working hard, mate. Work hard, and something's going to come. Just work hard.
It's kind of, you're telling the story that's the opposite of the TV diva story that you almost expect. You expect it to be that you just sort of click your fingers and all the little men who
Mate, I
your
wish.
neighbors do everything for you, and you get to go back to the beach and drink the margaritas we were talking about
I
before.
wish.
You know?
I'll tell you. I will tell you a story about diva wise, and I was told, like, don't be a diva. And I remember my first episode, and I was so nervous, and I was so worried about like messing things up and all that sort of thing. And it was actually my wife's birthday at the time, and I hadn't got her a bloody present, and I was like,
Oh my goodness!
How am I going to get this present? And I'd found the right present, but it was in Manly, so I had no way of getting it, and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And then we've got these people called runners, like they're people that help us, and they're like laborers and all that sort of thing, and they go and get your stuff. If I need something from Bunnings, they'll go, so you stay. I've like on the quiet gone to one of the runners. I've gone, oh look, I've paid for this dress. It's at Manly. Can you go and pick it up for me? And can you get it gift wrapped and then come back, mate? That was the biggest diva-ish thing that I've ever done, and that was on day one. And I'm like just going, oh my God, I'm that person. I've turned into a diva already. I'm like just going, no, but no more. I haven't done any of that ever again, so it's fine. I've made up for it.
They probably don't care though.
No, they loved it, mate. He was more than happy to go for a 20-minute drive or a half-hour drive to Manly, pick up this dress from bloody whatever it was, and then come back. And mate, it was no problems. I'd given him my credit card to sort out whatever he had to do, and
Did you tell him the dress was for your wife, or was he like, mate, Des got some weird weekend hobbies?
Yeah, he sort of looked at me a little bit funny, but mate, I think when he saw the size of me, he went, that's so it was all right. If I was getting a larger size, he might have had some apprehension.
Now you sound like the exact opposite of a diva, and even coming like you first thing you said here, we can talk about anything, and the honesty. I think this is what makes these forums so good, because I don't know how many people listening to this right now who can relate to that story of you driving back from Woolworths, being the former NRL guy, and just the low points of life, because that happens. That's life,
Yeah, mate, it happens, and it did happen, mate. I'm not making any excuses about it, mate. And then there's been other occasions, like it's just life has twists and turns, mate, in it, and you're not ready for some of them. Some of them you are ready, and some of them you think you're ready, and all of a sudden, when it gets there, you're just not. So, yeah, I seriously, like mate, I've managed to get through my low points. I've managed to ride the high points, and there's been lots of them. It's been a roller coaster right the way through. And I'm sure I'm going to have some low points, moving forward. But again, if I just keep working hard and surround myself with the right people, which I'm doing more times than I'm not, I'm going to be okay.
How is it feeling with your kids? Because I know that for me, when I had my health crisis, so I couldn't work for 2.5 years, and there was a chance that was the rest of my life, basically. And I had both of my kids in that season, so I've got very young kids. Because I've only been somewhat better for about 1.5 years now, and I was like, man, what do I even do? Because, in the same sort of sense that like gardening had been my entire career, and to lose the ability to work physically made it such a, like, what do I do kind of thing. And you try and build the business, and we have all these challenges and all that sort of stuff. And people don't talk about that. And I don't know if it's because but it happens more than often. But I wonder if, especially us guys, we don't want to be a burden on people. You don't want to bring up what's going on, because you don't want to burden people. But it happens, and it's a lot more frequent than people. Yeah, people have crazy stuff go on.
Yeah, mate, they do. Honestly, it's a bloody tough world out there at the moment, and it's shithouse. And as a bloke, we are too proud sometimes to talk about things. I think that is becoming a lot more prevalent, and I think there's a lot more help out there for men. It's not weak to cry. It's all about talking to someone and making sure that you can express your feelings, man. If you don't, like, they just eat you up. They will eat you up. Like, everyone goes through stuff, and it's a case of everyone's got their own stuff going on as well. Like, treat someone how you want to be treated yourself, and ask someone, it's just a simple question, mate. Are you okay? Like, and it's literally, there's Are You Okay Day. And it's like, why can't you ask people that? It doesn't have to be Are You Okay Day to ask someone if you're okay, So, everyone's got their own shit going on. I've got shit going on that I'm not proud of and I'm not happy with at the moment. Like, it's tough, but I've got people that I'm talking to, and is it helping? Not really, but like, is it helping? Yeah, it is helping, but mate, it's rough out there. It's rough, and everyone's in the same boat. And if you think, you look at people now, and it's all about Instagram, and I look at my life, and it's just fucking amazing. Part of my language, like, and everyone gets caught up in, he doesn't have a care in the world. You know what? They're probably the people that actually have the most cares in the world, because it's all just a facade that they're building. Look, I should be better at social media. I should have more followers. I should have, like, all this stuff. But
that pressure you put on yourself.
Oh, mate, like, I just, what you see is what you get, and if you don't like what you get, mate, don't follow me.
Why are you running on the treadmill? Something like, I was thinking about this with so I'm about to go on a podcast tour.
Yep.
Right. And it's a very early stages of planning. And anyways, I was going to take this old ute that I've got, old trusty Hilux, because it's kind of the perfect car for what I want to do. Put some camping stuff on the back of the ute, and awning, blah, blah. Anyway, someone's crashed into the back of one of our setups, and they've totaled the trailer, destroyed the equipment on the thing, and there's a good chance that the truck is totaled because they've bent the chassis.
Yeah, wow.
And I'm like, it's all insured, whatever. Insurance will sort it, so it's nothing I'm stressing about. But I'm like, I could get a new ute for this insurance stuff now, and I could.
Yeah.
I was driving back from my holiday on the long weekend, the East long weekend we just had, and I was like, why would the car that I have is already the perfect car. It would just be to show off to other people that I would get a new ute.
Yeah.
Because the car's, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it that would for what I want it for. And I've had it for a very long time. It's got a lot of kilometers on it. But it's a Toyota Hilux. They've got about 6,000 billion kilometers in there,
Yeah.
And I was like, no, do you know what? I wanted it, but now I realize I would just be buying that to impress people and be like, look at my shiny, fancy new ute. So I'm like, no, I'm going to go around in this ute that I bought for $8,000 back when cars were affordable. Remember that word affordable we used to use?
Yeah.
Because nothing is affordable anymore. But I'm like, no, I'm going to do that because we all get sucked into that trap of like, I'm going to do something just to impress somebody on the internet. And it's like, hold on a second. These are not even people I know or care about or have met.
Yeah. And we all get caught up in it. We all get caught up in keeping up with the Joneses, and we all get caught up in, the latest TikTok trends and all that sort of stuff. I've been guilty of it myself. I'd love to have a bigger business. Look at those guys. They're like doing bigger and better stuff. Like, mate, I go, I don't want the headache. I don't want the headache of having 10 or 15 staff. Like, I really don't, and keep trying to find work for them. And that pressure, and mate, I just don't want it, mate. I've worked for myself 9 years now, and I've had 4 employees at some stage, and I was down to one who was just the ultimate keeper, and mate, now I've sort of downsized, and he's sort of doing some other stuff, and mate, as I said, I'm now just worrying about myself and picking up small little jobs that I want to sort of do, and try and keep it a little bit boutique. I'm trying to sort of concentrate a little bit more on the Selling Houses Australia and try and make this a winner if I can. Again, I should be doing more Instagram, mate. I should be doing more of this stuff, podcasts and stuff like that. But mate, I'm not. I'm not. And the reason I'm not is because it's kind of not me. But you know what? Like I do enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it. It's I'm not just going to do something because everyone thinks I should do it. I'm just, you know what? If it feels right, I do it.
Sure, like I think I can understand when you say that Instagram's not you because you're not that diva wanting to put the makeup on and show us, how you looked in that dress you bought that you pretended was for your wife, but clearly we know the truth. No, but it's honestly, that part of Instagram is. But so what I feel, because I felt this too, because I don't really post on my personal Instagram. I'm like, I should post personal stories or things like that on my Instagram, but I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. But I'm like, but hold on a second, you don't actually have to be that guy.
That guy, mate, absolutely.
Because then it becomes this self-fulfilling thing where everyone on Instagram posts that way because apparently that's the way that you're supposed to post. Yeah. But the stories that we're talking about here, they're the stories of the low points and the challenges and just giving things cracks and things go well. That's what makes social media great. And the stories, instead of it being like, look at my fancy new ute, the stories of, hey, I used to be at this point, and this is that stuff is gold. We need more of that on the internet,
mate. Absolutely. We need more genuine people, mate. And that's what I said to you before. What you see is what you get, mate, on TV. I'm passionate. I'm bloody competitive. You tell me I can't do something, and I guarantee you I will do everything in my power to prove you wrong. And mate, if I love what I'm doing, then I'm doing it. I'm doing it wholeheartedly. As I say, I might not be getting it right all the time, but I'm trying to. And you know what? It's not for any lack of trying that I'm getting it wrong.
Well, I believe that you can't make a nice Instagram that was actually real and genuine and was helpful for people. I don't think it's possible for you to do that.
Mate, my Instagram is going gangbusters at the moment because there's episodes playing every Wednesday on the Lifestyle channel on Foxtel, just quietly. So they send me stuff that I can almost post every day. So people are like, lapping it up. So my followers have increased like by 200 or 300 over the last few weeks. So hopefully, mate, that might continue. I don't know, mate. And you know what? I don't bloody care, to tell you the truth, because, mate, that's not me. It's not necessarily me, mate. Do I want to do it because like I think it's an opportunity for me to further my career? Absolutely. But you know what? I don't want to do it because of like I think that that's the real world. I'm doing it because like that's what I've got to do to try and advance my career.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, one of the things that when I started this podcast, right, I'd been on other podcasts and people weren't having the conversations that I wanted to have in the podcast world. I love podcasts. I was listening to them. And so I started this. And a lot of the chats that we do end up talking about business and business struggle and all sorts of stuff, because that's my life, right? I've been in business for 10 years and I, believe it or not, I did not get everything right the entire time. And anyway, so we do these podcasts, and my favorite part of it, because I'm just talking about the real parts of the conversations, the genuineness of this kind of social media, because I guess podcasting kind of is. But I get comments. These are my favorite comments that people are like, I am exactly where you were, and this was so helpful. Or I changed something because of a podcast I listened to, and your guest said something, and blah, blah. And they are the best comments to get. And like, we're in such a small niche. You're kind of one of the more popular podcasts in the niche, but it's not a massive niche where we're getting, stupid, crazy Joe Rogan numbers.
Yeah.
But there's so much more value because there's a kind of those vanity metrics that sometimes you can get on the internet. Well, I've got this many TikTok followers and this and that. But man, the value of those sorts of comments and hearing from people and messages and stuff when someone's like, I listened to this and I feel like these stories, people are going to have these sorts of comments about this podcast. And if people you are listening, you're like, yeah, this relates, put a comment out and we can read them. And it's encouraging to hear because people are like, yeah, I've had those moments and I relate and I've been down in business and life. And
mate,
that's
absolutely.
great.
And if people have got mate, and honestly, I don't know how it works, but mate, if people have got questions for me, like by all means, mate, reach out. I'll try and answer them as honestly and openly as possible. So maybe down the track, like, there might be some questions come from whoever listens to this podcast, and they might be feeling the same way or felt the same way. And mate, if I can help or give advice, whether it be a young guy playing football or a young guy, getting into the landscape industry, mate, I'm happy to offer my advice. It might not be the right advice for you, but you know what? That's my advice and my opinion, and you sort of take whatever little bit you can out of it. And if you can get something out of it, then great.
Mate, I don't know. I could keep talking to you for ages, but I feel like we can't get any deeper than what we just went. You know what I mean? Like, if I go back to the questions I've got written down, it'll be like, what's your favorite plant?
Yeah, no, mate, honestly, and there's so many of them, all those sort of questions. It's like, you're trying to come up with something a little bit clever and witty at the time. And it's like, whereas ultimately you sort of go, well, hang on, what is my favorite plant? Like, so, yeah, it could be totally different, but mate, that could be for another day. That could be another podcast, mate. Who knows? Like, it could be a little quick half hour or something like that. And just, mate, get some questions in there and away we go.
Well. Mate, I'll have you on any time. But I just want to say that from the outset, this was better than I thought. And I thought it would be good. And then I thought it would be even better when I did the more research I did. And then this was because you were honest. And the thing people would have thought is former NRL guy who has his own business and now is on TV must have everything all together. No,
mate, I don't have my shit together. Trust me, I don't, mate. I'm currently going through marriage separation and all sorts of stuff, mate. I could delve into, mate, my world is as pretty a package as what people think that it is. Mate, I've got my demons and I've got my shit going on as well, honestly. Like, just be kind to people. Be kind to people because you don't know what they're going through. So just, you know what? On a daily basis, mate, say hello and just ask people how they are.
I don't think we can get any better than that. I feel like this is the time to finish. So thank you so much for coming on, Dennis. And people reach out.
Absolute pleasure.
We'll have you on sometime in the future, I'm sure. We can talk about
no problems. Just message me, mate, and I'll make myself available.
And everybody else, I will see you in the next podcast. All right, friends, before you go, firstly, well done for making it to the end of the podcast. Secondly, if you have made it to the end of the podcast, you obviously liked the podcast. If you do like the podcast, which you clearly do because you made it to the end, unless you fell asleep or somebody held you against your will, maybe you're the passenger and the driver put the podcast on. It was too awkward to tell them that you didn't like it and you think the host is an absolute wanker. And so you just sat there and suffered. But everybody else, other than those two scenarios, you probably do like it. If you do like it, can you share it? Can you comment? Can you give us ratings? All that sort of stuff. Support in some way because this is not a big production. And believe it or not, those little things actually make massive differences to the algorithm, helping people find the podcast. And ultimately, if you enjoyed it, maybe somebody else will. So I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting and listening all the way. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Anyways, I'll see you in the next podcast.